It's never easy to learn a new language, but French isn't as hard as it seems, although its grammar can be very confusing. If we are to believe the U.S. Foreign Service Institute's FSI, School of Language Studies, French, many Romance languages, is a language more similar to English than others. The FSI states that French typically requires 30 weeks or 750 classroom hours of study to achieve professional working proficiency, B2 on the CEFR scale, though the actual time can vary based on a number of factors, including the language learner's natural ability, prior linguistic experience, and time spent in the classroom. The FSI scale ranks French as a Category 1 language, considered more similar to English compared to Categories 3 and 4 hard or super hard languages. According to the FSI, French is one of the easiest languages to learn for a native English speaker. Yet with an average of 30 weeks to achieve proficiency, it's still hard to master the language. All in all, it's a long journey from learning how to say hello in French to achieving professional working proficiency. Now have a rough idea of how long it takes to learn French, but in the estimates provided by the FSI, learners are typically American diplomats that dedicate 25 hours per week to study.
Why is French considered easy to learn?
French and English share the same alphabet. While English is originally a Germanic language, the language has evolved throughout the centuries under the influences of other Germanic languages, including Latin and French. Old English started developing during the Middle Ages following William the Conqueror's conquest of England in 1066, and the language has evolved ever since. The French lexicon has significantly contributed to English. It is estimated that 1 to 2/3 of modern English vocabulary has French roots. There are many similarities between both languages, although some words have changed spellings and pronunciation. The opposite is also true, as English has become the most spoken language in the world. Many French words are of English origin.
Une place de parking, un hamburger.
As a native English speaker, these words are significant assets to expand your vocabulary. Beware of false friends. Some words look identical in both languages, but their meanings are very different, like for example, the word excited.
Why is French hard to learn?
Many find French hard to learn because of the complex grammar and linguistic nuances that don't exist in English, especially for those who have never studied another European language, specifically Romance languages like Spanish or Portuguese. Here are some of the language's notorious difficulties.
False friends.
False friends are words that look identical or similar but have different meanings, which can make a sentence misleading and tricky for beginner learners of the French language. Some examples below.
Actuellement.
Means now, currently, not actually.
Hasard.
Means chance, coincidence, random, not hazard.
Pain.
Means bread, not actual physical pain.
Je suis actuellement à la boulangerie, je vais prendre un pain au hasard.
Doesn't translate as, I am actually at the bakery, I'm going to take a hazardous pain. But instead, I am currently at the bakery, I'm going to choose a loaf of bread randomly.
Conjugation.
There are many forms and tenses in French. You won't need them all on a daily basis, but they are nevertheless good to know in case you need to describe the subjunctive, conditional nature of life. The sequence of tenses is more complex due to the sheer number present in the French language. There are around 200 common irregular verbs in English, and regular verbs always conjugate in the same way. French has many more irregular verbs, and conjugation can be very difficult to memorize. With this in mind, you don't have to worry about the intricate gears of French conjugation, because many of these forms and tenses are exclusively used in literature, and in order to speak conversational French, you'll only need a few.
Gender for living beings.
The differentiation of genders is generally quite straightforward in English: a man, a woman, a male gorilla, a female gorilla. All living beings have a grammatical gender in French, and in many cases, it's a simple rule of doubling the final consonant and adding an E at the end.
Un chien, une chienne. Un chat, une chatte. Un lion, une lionne.
Sometimes, the grammatical gender is specified as an adjective, but the noun remains the same.
Un gorille mâle, une gorille femelle. Une girafe mâle, une girafe femelle. Une hirondelle mâle, une hirondelle femelle.
Finally, some words are spelled differently depending on the gender.
Un homme, une femme. Un cheval, une jument. Un cerf, une biche.
Plurals and subject, verb agreement.
In English, the rule is easy. Adding s or es works most of the time, with some rare irregular nouns like men, knives, teeth, mice, or some nouns which don't have a plural form. The general rule of thumb in French is to add s at the end of a word to make it plural. However, there are a few exceptions.
Pronunciation.
French pronunciation plays on a fairer ground in French and all French-speaking countries. The rules tend to be quite clear, and it's actually much easier than it seems, even with all the silent consonants. Some sounds, such as the nasal sounds,
Un bon vin blanc.
the R,
French, how about you? As in like Paris? As in like croissant? I can't do it. Yeah, I'm doing it. Like this? We're all doing it. I think it's more like... Oh.
and the very similar sounds such as a.
Okay, could you explain to me the difference between these two? It's simple. That one is and the other one is a. What?
Some frequently silent letters are particularly difficult for English speakers. Proper nouns and place names are difficult to pronounce for English native speakers,
Montpellier, Montrachet, Bourg-la-Reine.
and some other exceptions where the rules don't necessarily apply.
Oignon, monsieur.
Although it may appear tough, through some thorough thoughts, you will realize the English language has its own set of odd pronunciation. If you've managed to get over the fact that oof can be pronounced in 11 different ways, you ought to do great in French too.
Spelling.
Much like pronunciation, spelling in French can be scary because of the many silent consonants, but then again, English also has its fair share of difficult words to spell.
So, is it hard to learn French?
While it's true that French is a hard language to master, even for native speakers, the good news is that you don't necessarily need to master a language to be able to use it in conversational or professional contexts. Also, bear in mind that if you only need to learn some basic French for traveling, you don't need to be fluent. Languages are never easy to learn, but some can be easier than others, and French is among the easier languages to learn for native English speakers. Practice is key to learning a language faster and better, and you shouldn't be scared of speaking broken French. Many French speakers will actually find the mistakes you make, and your accent, charming. So what are you waiting for? Begin your journey towards French fluency.